There's a big fat one, a skinny one, and a medium-sized one.
Matt Shulman is still on top with the 69. I love Formula Drift. No stranger to drifting, no stranger to competition.
That guy stole my freaking ratchet wrench. I see that. That's mine.
The pole petition.
He rejects your reality and inserted his own. This is a stimulator, right?
Pilot. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Clipping Point. With me I have Mr. Paul Murphy.
Oh, I don't know where we're going to start.
It's random.
Yes,
start.
indeed.
It's random
Okay.
starting here.
Yes.
Along with Mr. Tim Murphy.
Thank you, sir.
And myself, Mr. Captain Ben.
We need to get lights that like you're alive.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Oh,
We're
okay.
just going to roll with the punches, and we're going to go ahead and welcome in our special guest of the evening. You know him as no stranger to competition, and now no stranger to the podium.
Nope.
He is
There's no
your
stranger.
round 4 Klutch Kickers season 3 winner.
Isn't that insane?
That's wild.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and welcome Mr. Nate Hamilton, folks. Hang on. Wait. Almost there.
You need more vigorous claps.
Yeah, come on.
Oh, wait. Hang on.
Oh man, technical difficulty. You're just what's going?
Yeah, there we go. Okay, all right. Yeah, Nate,
That
you gotta,
represents our audience
yeah,
right
so
now.
Nate, you gotta unmute the microphone.
Is
Nate, yeah, he's there, but he has to unmute it. Unmute.
There you go.
There we go.
There we go. All right, good.
Welcome, Nate. How you doing?
Yeah, let's.
What up? Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. So before we start, and this is just, and I don't know if you thought about this as well, but and Ben brought this up right after you won. He's like, "Isn't it crazy that we had set you up to come on the show the week after before you won?" And then we're like, "It couldn't have ended more perfect." Did that? You're like, "Hey, wait a minute!" Like, and it's like, so not only can you go over the event, but you took first place. It's like we called it. Now everybody's gonna want to be on the show.
Right. Book the show, win the race. You know.
Oh well,
Oh,
hey,
man.
I'll take that.
Good timing though. Honestly, right?
Yeah.
Good timing. That was cool. I've been wanting to come on the show for some time now, and it all just kind of worked out pre the race. We were like, hey, let's do the thing on Friday, and then the race happened, and it all worked out. So.
Awesome.
No, it was great. Okay, so we'll start off because there may be some people that watch us later on that don't know who you are and your experience. So give us a brief summary of Mr. Nate Hamilton and his drifting career.
You want to start how you
Yeah,
got
for
started?
sure. I mean,
Yeah,
I guess
that's
the
a summary. It's part of the
super
summary.
skinny version is I'm a self-taught driver. I started street drifting in the streets of Plano, Texas, in the rain. This took me from an SR20 to an LS platform to Pro-Ams to XTC to Formula Drift. Then I exited Formula Drift to start a business. And then I started doing grassroots tours to kind of get back into drifting. So that's the super skinny version. I've been drifting somewhere around 15 years and just kind of enjoyed like every chapter that drifting has taken me in my life, you know?
Right. Did you do any type of motorsports prior to drifting?
Not necessarily. I was on like a PW50 when I was probably like 4 to 5 years old. Like I have memories of riding a dirt bike, but at the same time, I ended up like sliding the dirt bike over sideways, dad pouring peroxide down my whole body, and basically, you know,
Okay.
mom being like, he's done with the dirt bike. So
Yeah.
I just grew up on a skateboard, so I didn't really have too much like motorsports background. My dad was never training me to be a driver or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah, we I always like to get some information because the drivers come from such diverse backgrounds, right? People come over from motocross, from kart racing, from skateboarding is actually, I think when you started drifting, majority of people came from skateboarding.
Yeah.
Dayron, a lot of guys were hardcore skaters that made the transition over to drifting. I see now, it seems like now it's kind of changed. It's been like most of the guys are coming over come from motocross.
A lot of motocross guys, yeah.
So it's good to get an idea just where people come from to also see how that experience might have played a role in their drifting career, right? So you started.
There's a lot of parallels, right, with the skateboarding or BMX into drifting at like, in like the 2010 to 12 era was like skateboarding was you have no coach, you're self-driven, you fall down a bunch of times, you got to get back up. And then the same kind of concept when you're a grassroots driver, you have no team, you've got to carry the weight of everything and you've got to get yourself on track. So for me, like skateboarding was drifting just as I got older and there's like a lifespan in skateboarding, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that carries over from motocross. You guys, skating as well as motocross, you're throwing your bodies like all crazy angles in the air, hoping you land on your feet. So when you make that transition to drifting, that fear that a lot of other, like myself included, I never came from an extreme sport, right? I did some drag racing, some autocrossing, and mostly car show stuff, nothing crazy, and then went over to drifting. For me, it was scarier because I'm going faster and, I'm afraid of crashing. But coming from that extreme games style of sport, you're like, well, I'm in a car.
I'm safe.
I'm safe. So
for real, yeah. There's not a lot of, I say there's not a lot of fear in drifting, but like I do feel very, very safe when I drift. And I think like going back to the parallels, it's like with skateboarding, to learn a trick, maybe you try it 1,000 times and you land it once. Yeah. And then with drifting, you guys see even at the Klutch Kickers series how competitive that is now. You enter in 5 rounds and you hope to win 1, 2 at the time. There's so many good dudes out there, so you kind of got to have that heart in it, right?
So what was the vehicle you started drifting in?
So I first started drifting in an RX-7. It was an FD 1993.
Oh wow.
So basically I had a point in my life where I had a Jetta, and I fell in love with drifting through my hometown friend Joseph Bell. And basically I learned that I picked the wrong car, and a Jetta was front wheel drive only.
Oh no.
So I went down to kind of one of those like private, dealerships, if you will. And they had a RX-7 and I kind of had this new like Jetta. And so he was like, look, man, you don't really want to trade me. This RX-7 is a lot to deal with, and it's worth maybe like at the time a little less than the car you're trading it in for. And so yeah, I was like, dude, it's rear wheel drive. I need this car. Got the car, and I did about a year with it. And then I started kind of like rubbing the front end on stuff in the streets and realizing like, I can't even afford a fender on this thing.
Right. Yeah.
So,
wow. So so then after you transitioned from the RX-7, what was your next chassis?
So when I I had the RX-7 and I was obviously working just like a full-time job. So I bought me a 240 shell. So that was basically the concept, was to build that into my drift car, and the RX-7 would just be something kind of fun to have around the house or whatever, drive on the daily. But long story short, so I had the RX-7 in the backyard, I had the 240 in the garage, and I'm trying to work on it. I'm living with dad at the time, right? Like I'm a young kid. I'm like 19 or something. And then I just had one of my hometown friends walk up literally with a bag with like $10,000 in it, and he was like, I would like to buy your RX-7. And my dumb ass was like, $10,000 in a 240 will go a long way. I can get suspension, put a motor on it, and I'll start drifting this thing. So I let the RX-7 go, took the money, built the 240, and that was basically my first chassis that I drove to work and got my pro license in.
Oh wow. Okay, so where did you so you sold an FD RX-7 for 10 grand?
Yes. Yeah. Like maybe what?
That's probably like 40 grand right now.
Oh, I know. And this was, of course, maybe let's call it 14 years ago. So
yeah, I know.
Bit of a different time period, but still, like, it was a dumb move for sure. I miss it a lot.
Yeah, we've all sold cars that we shouldn't have.
Yeah, we all been there. Yeah, and it's not gonna probably won't be the last time, but hopefully we learn from our mistakes.
Absolutely. And
Oh.
the thing is that's still like in my dad's old neighborhood. The car's still there. So
Oh no!
when I cruise back through dad's house, I see it and I'm just like, God, why'd I do that?
Oh well.
no.
Yeah, and he ain't gonna sell it back to you for 10 grand.
No. Exactly.
Oh man. Okay, so you take that money, you start investing, and you say how long from the time you started that? I mean, let's just use that incident, right, to kind of like cue off the point in the time where you're like, okay, I'm going to take this serious. How long from that time where you took it serious, got that money, and started investing into the 240 did it take for you to actually go pro and get to that level?
Well, I would say, like let's call it 4 years before I went into XDC. So basically like getting the 240 and going all the way to Pro-Am took me about 4 years. So at the time, like the $10,000 put the SR20 in it. It put the drivetrain in it, it put the rear end in it, and it put the suspension on it. And then I really started hitting grassroots events. And yeah, like from there, I kind of showed a little bit of skill, and I started picking up like, Inkay Wheels was my first sponsor.
Oh, that's a good sponsor.
Yeah, it was cool. It was like that was the first person that came up to me and was like, hey, I like your driving and I'd love to put these wheels on your car. And so long story short, that happened. And I think on the 4th year, the SR20 blew up. And then my local like builder at the time talked me into an LS motor. So then it took me literally a year not driving the car at all to put the motor in it just to afford it. And then when we completed that project, he basically forced me to go to XDC, which was Extreme Drift Circuit, if you guys remember that series.
Oh, we do.
So that was where I basically was like, what? I just got a new motor platform. I've never driven this. And basically like fresh off the lot, I had to go to New Jersey and compete in XDC's, like round 2 or whatever. So I kind of claim that being the start of my career because drove to New Jersey, qualifying lap 1, got a 0, qualifying lap 2, finished like P1 in qualifying. So it was really kind of nuts for me to out qualify everybody and be like, wow, what did I just do? And then I finished the event in 4th place. And that's when I met like Jared Deanda, Chris Forsberg, and a lot of the DA guys. So that first moment in New Jersey is kind of when my heart was like, I'm going to be a drifter,
Right. Right. What was I going to say is, so you were able to take that chassis and then you got sponsorships and you're starting to develop a program. How long did it take you to develop a program? And what were some of the, maybe the hardships, if you had any, just trying to struggle and trying to find how, because you do really good at you talk great, right? You have a good presence. You're very professional. Were you always, is that something that came natural to you or is that something you had to learn?
I would say like, I definitely think it probably came more natural than I'd give it credit to, but also let's go back to the hardships, which was like, when I was younger, I think I was around a really, really solid circle. So like obviously Chris Forsberg, Von Gittin Jr., Ryan Turek, the Hoonigans, Jared Deanda, like those dudes basically what I would kind of claim raised me in my drifting career. So opportunities came and I didn't really know how to navigate those opportunities, which brought hardships. So kind of like if I'm talking to Jared, I'm always mentioning like, man, you guys really bigged me up and you really gave me a lot of opportunity and I didn't really know what to do with it. And that's where I think when you see me today, I just have to learn from all those moments to try to put together the best program I can for my team now. So yeah, I would say definitely didn't have this attitude, 5 years ago, right?
So you competed in XDC, and that's what you say you got your pro license for XDC?
Yep. So I finished 3rd place overall in the first season of Extreme Drift Circuit. So it was like,
that's pretty good.
I think Denofa finished 1st. And then either maybe like, I'm forgetting who finished 2nd, but I think Denofa finished 1st and I finished 3rd, and we were all competing with like Dave Briggs and a bunch of OGs, Rapper Dan Savage and James Evans from Sicky. And it was like looking at it now, Will Parsons, it was really this like legends category at that time. But yeah, so I finished really well there, and then I thought, man, I should go pro. And a few people told me not to because of the difference in car and team and skill. But man, I was just that naive kid that like this was what I was meant to do, so I was going pro.
Yeah.
Well, you got your pro license. That's the natural progression, right? If you're going to go through all that competition, get your pro license, it makes sense. You're going to go pro. Chelsea did, right?
Well, no, Chelsea sat next to XTC for a while.
He did sit next to C for a while.
He won. I don't know, how many years did he go?
Yeah, I think me and Chelsea like ran maybe 2 seasons together.
Yeah.
So the second season is kind of, I guess, what I'm talking about when I decided to move forward. So it was the same year, I want to say, that Denofa debuted in Formula Drift as well. So like Chelsea, Pat, myself, Pat Good, and a few others of us were kind of all in that, I want to say, 2013 FD moment.
Okay. So how was that transition? Because obviously, so what? Okay, let me actually stop there for a second. What were you doing for a full-time job to be able to support this?
Screen printing.
Oh, still okay. So you've been doing that for a long time.
That's how that all connected again.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can go down that like kind of conversation, which was just like, I had an opportunity to screen print, and I was just a pressman. So I was able to basically work like Monday through Thursday and basically print as many jobs as possible. So I'd work like 12, 13-hour days to get that Friday off. And then Friday we could head to the track, put in the Saturday, Sunday, back to it on Monday. So it's kind of like saying I had a little bit of a lenient job to then allow me to be out on the weekends. So that came into play, and I hated screen printing at that time. It was like,
really?
That's funny.
You know what I mean? I'm screen printing like flowers and butterflies, which obviously those are cool, but like I was screen printing stuff that just was like totally unrelatable to the skateboarder and drifter that I was. And I'm just printing all day, like arms bleeding, and then I'd get to go drift. So I just put my heart into that. And then, like around that FD moment was when I just decided to try to go heavy into drifting full time and start to gain sponsorships and all of that stuff. So, but I got one for you. You mentioned like, how was the transition from, I guess you'd say like XDC to pro. And I was on Achilles tires at the time. So the funny story that I remember for so long is just like, so I'm actually getting free tires in XTC, right? Like I'm getting a certain allotment of Achilles tires, and I finished third, and I'm all on a high and everything's going good. And I called Achilles and I'm like, hey guys, good news. I got my license. I'm going pro. How cool is this? And then they're literally like, there was a little more butter here, but they were basically like, hey Nate, that's so cool. Here's your pricing chart for your tires. You know what I mean? Like, literally like, see you in pro. And I was like,
oh wow.
I was like, hold on, wait.
That's the wrong direction.
Wait, I'm going pro. And they were like,
I need more tires.
Like, it's like, middle school to high school, right? Like you're in a whole new category, and you're going to be on basically a team with Daigo, and so you got to pay for your tires. And I'm like, holy crap. So I really wasn't in a position to do that. So through Hoonigan, they connected me with Falcon Tire. So, if you go back through the history, I kind of debuted my Formula Drift moment with Falcon Tires.
Yeah.
But I was working with Achilles tires all the way up to that moment. So it was tough. I remember, getting the pro license, and there was no party. There was no big firework. It was more or less like, damn, back to the drawing board, back to rebuilding all of this stuff. But I guess I'm in the pro class.
Wow. So that must have been a rough, that's a rough transition. Like you're on cloud 9.
You think you're going to get more stuff, right? So you're going to get you have more potential, right?
Right. You have more potential, broader fan base, potentially more people following you, going to want to, buy that brand that you're rocking. And here they're pulling out. That's like taking the wind out of your sails.
Yeah, man. It really
was. But at the time too, you got to remember. I mean, I think on a super just round number, there's like 80 people in the pro class. There was no pro 2, right? So like, when me and Denofa went pro, it's just go into pro, and to make top 64 was cool. there was times where I was qualifying like 65th, and I wasn't even, you know, in the 64.
jeez.
So it was just like,
Right.
I'm sure the companies invested at that time were like stretched thin, and as the
Yes.
new
Yeah.
guys came through, they had to make their way a bit, you know.
Right. They have different budgets. A budget for the pro guys, a budget for the pro-am guys. Yeah, I get that on the business end. Absolutely.
Yep.
So you move past that point, and then let me ask you something. The screen printing. So the screen printing wasn't a family business kind of thing. This is just something you applied for and just wanted to start doing?
No. It actually was a family business backing.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, like my mom is into business, and her business partner and her basically had started a printing shop aside from their other business, and just kind of throughout them going down that lane of business, it was much more creative. And for me, when I was drifting, I was trying to make like team gear and like make my boys feel cool that we were going to go to the track.
Yeah.
And so obviously I was like, damn, I would much rather work there. So obviously I got the job and I started screen printing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So, okay. So now, let's fast forward. Let's kind of pick up where we left off. You got your pro license. How did your first season of FD go?
I think it went super terrible.
Okay.
I mean,
Well, that's honest.
I just remember being behind the ball. But at the same time, looking at it now, it was much more of a, you know, like I really connected with the scene. So my driving results weren't doing that well, but I was really gaining relationships. And, you know, at that time, it was kind of not expected, but it was very difficult to battle Von Gittin Jr. in the top 64. And I've never even really been around a program like that coming out of Texas with me, two friends, and like dad, you know what I mean? So obviously, like, there was a lot of camaraderie back then. So like you're drinking a beer going like, how the hell am I going to beat you tomorrow? You know, it's like, you know, so like the odds were stacked against me. So I don't feel like my heart was broken when I didn't get great race results, but I was so in love with the industry that, you know, it made up for it, I guess.
Yeah. What would you say your biggest lesson for your first season of Formula Drift was, and how were you able to utilize that as you moved on?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you know, it's like, oh man, that's a tough question. I would just say like being more business minded was missing. So throughout the first year, I'm literally going like, how do these sponsorships work? Like, I just was I was too blind going into it. So I'd say that would be like my biggest miss was just like, I remember being at Englishtown, New Jersey. I remember Matt Petty, who's like an OG from Englishtown, if you guys don't know him.
Yeah.
I love this car.
But he literally told me, and I think he called my dad and was just like, tell Nate to not go pro. Like, do not go pro. And again, like I was set on it. So I was going pro, and I just quickly realized, man, if I would have put like 4 more years into XDC, my pro debut would have just been that much better. So like I recommend that to kids right now, you know, like unless you're like on one and you really, really, really feel ready and your team is like up to par, just keep winning whatever Klutch Kickers as long as you can. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How, I don't. You don't have to answer this question, but because you kind of like you're like the what's his name? The guy who plays the Matrix. You don't look like you've aged. Yeah. Keanu Reeves. You don't look like you aged. So I don't think you'll mind asking this question. So how old were you when you got your pro license?
Okay, let's do some math real quick because I got asked.
Stop with the math.
Okay, hold up, real quick. So yeah, let's call it 22 years old when I debuted in pro drifting.
Gotcha.
That's good. I mean, that's an accomplishment for a 22-year-old. That is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, and coming out of Texas, I mean, I think Denofa lived down in Houston for a bit, but there just wasn't a ton of kids coming out of Texas into the pro class. So it was cool. It was cool for us to do that for sure.
Yeah. And how big was the scene in drifting scene in Texas back then? Did you guys had quite a few trials. So you're from Denton, right?
Yeah, I'm in Denton right now. Yep.
So
from
where
North Texas.
Okay. And so what are the major tracks? I don't really know the geography of Texas because it's massive. So what are the tracks in your area that you were hitting up back then?
Yeah, so the track that we drove on the most was called Mineral Wells, and it's basically, it's like west of Fort Worth. And I really do credit this as well to some of the driving today, because this was basically like an old airstrip, and you could literally go like 110 miles an hour, slide the car sideways with no consequence. There was so much concrete that like you almost lost sight of anything. Like it was just that much concrete. So I started drifting, like high speed drifting, for the first like event that I would go to. So for me, like a fourth gear, holy shit, I'm going fast, like drift was just normal.
Yeah. Do you have something?
No, go ahead.
So, and then I noticed that too, like for me, we only had slow tracks down here. Didn't really have anything fast.
Yeah.
So the time when I did get to go fast, when I went to like North Carolina, Charlotte Motor Speedway, just even though I didn't get many runs in, but breaking that 80, 90 mile an hour mark for me did a wonder in my slow game.
Yeah, you were there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, were you there for that?
Yeah, he was. He won.
Oh, he
won that one.
I just remember breaking a lot of stuff.
I'm pretty sure either him or Doug Vandenbrink won.
It was,
It was between you two guys.
Yeah, I was at Charlotte County SWD.
It was the SWD event.
And I had a green E30 that looked like the Red Baron or not the Red Baron, but looked like a German jet fighter. It was green with a yellow stripe on it.
Yeah.
But I broke stuff. And that was where who was driving the RX-7 that slammed into the wall, totaled his car. And then the other car that cut the whole top off, that was like a right-hand drive, like legitimate S13 Sylvia. Were you there for that?
Man, I'm feeling like I can see it, but I don't remember it.
Well, so this is what happened. Like, well, the one
That's
RX-7
two different events, dude.
No, that was the same event. It was the same weekend. I only went to Charlotte County, the Speedway once.
Yeah, but the event where they cut the roof off was not that.
Yes, it was. It was the same
That
event.
was an oval, dude.
It wasn't an oval.
It was. It was a.
I don't think it was an oval because I remember Brian coming out.
Order.
No, I think you're wrong. It was the same event because I remember he was going around the first turn, and then the rescue came out to him, said, "Are you okay?" He said, "Well, my neck kind of hurts." So they stopped him and they cut the roof off his car. It was a legitimate like right-hand drive.
Yes.
That was at Charlotte County Speedway. It was Charlotte County. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was outside of the Speedway with it was like the parking lot and then the cone gate and then we had a K-rail section.
Right. Correct. Right. And then we pitted it. We pitted in the NASCAR garages.
Yes.
I have a comment in the chat
Oops.
From a Patrick Gooden who writes, George Grob was the S13 they cut the roof off of.
Thank you.
It was a road course inside the Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Oh, wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Gooden.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I'm not going crazy.
Dude,
my brother makes me think I'm going crazy.
Ago.
He overconfidences me all the time. All the time. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm wrong. And then I find out I was actually right. But anyhow, just a little reminiscent. So that was so that was a good little. I didn't realize
he was there.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
What year was it? Does Pat know what year it was? Like, what year was that? I remember meeting ASD, like Ian. I remember
2016, 2015,
2012. He said 2012.
Yeah, it had to be 2012 because I knew because I was with Jess.
Oh,
I was with Jess for first year.
Long time ago.
Wow. Yeah, it was 2012.
Yeah, I broke a lot of stuff that
we've been at it.
Yeah. I was there. I qualified 17th. I missed it by one.
That's why he doesn't remember you.
I always miss. Yeah, that's why you don't remember me. Oh, that's funny. So, anyways, okay, sidetrack there. So you complete your first season, like you said, you were able to learn from your mistakes or just be able to take that because it's mistakes and you look back and you're like, oh, stupid, but at the same time. It doesn't matter if you're wrong or you did something wrong, as long as you take whatever you screwed up or you didn't do right and you can learn from it and you move on. How many seasons of Formula Drift did you do after that?
So my last season was 2017.
Okay. So like 5.
And
right?
kind of going back to your original question too, now it's coming to me now, but it's basically like, so imagine at that time as the driver, we're like leading the ship, right? Like we're operating the drifting program. And I remember struggling with crew and not being able to like guide and provide for my crew in order for them to grow with me. So I remember a few times like the crew was there, then it would change, then the crew would change. And so I feel like I wasn't making a lot of progress as a team throughout those years, just because of my leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that
So
was, yeah.
yeah, so actually, I was as you were talking about that, I thought of a question that I don't think I've asked any other driver that's come on here, but can you talk to the struggles that a driver faces trying to find a consistent crew, because that's integral to your success, having to find people that can not only know how to work on the car that you could trust, right? You don't have to say, are you sure you torque down this, right? You could trust them, but also finding a spotter that you can relate to. So kind of speak to some of the struggles. Were you able to find a consistent crew, or did you constantly go through guys?
Yeah, so I think like, I mean, I didn't like go through a ton of dudes, but I would say like I definitely would have a crew for, let's say, 2 to 3 years. And here's the struggle, right? So it's like you'll get some people who are like, I love drifting as much as you. I want to turn a wrench. You want to drive the car. Let's do this thing. And me being the operator of the program at that time, my mind is literally on like, can I cover the costs of going drifting with tires and fuel and all of the consumption and the travel? Like, can I literally just even cover that? And then if I got this dude with me who's like down to get the job done, he's maybe working his thing to get his pay on his own way. It's like that was the struggle. Was in the overall budget, I was not putting the crew. So therefore, whenever they realized, dang, I've been doing this for 2 years and I just want to go ride a jet ski, they would just go ride a jet ski, you know? And like, and they just could wipe their hands and roll. And then I would have to supplement that role. And so not until I started my screen printing business did I really start to like put all that together to be like, man, like I really want to pay you to do the job. And if you agree with this stuff, then let's accomplish these goals. And I want to hold you to your word and to your actions. And then now we can actually develop a team. So I would say, like, to all the other drivers out there that are looking to put programs together, like, just remember, man, like the crew is very important to provide for, and just reverse engineer like what each guy needs for your overall budget. So when you go to SEMA in a week and you're putting everything together, like you're able to then pay them and build off of that. Because if you got dudes around you that just want to do it for fun, and you're a driver that's doing it for like your life's goal, those dudes just sometimes don't always last as long as you.
Right. I just feel like the jet ski comment was oddly specific, but Ben had some. Ben,
Yeah. I wanted to ask you that there was obviously a time period where you started to wind down your drifting program, and you started to dedicate more time towards your screen printing program, I would say, and you started to really dedicate yourself to your business. And so, how was that transition, and how was the obviously you utilized the experience you already gained through your through the jobs that you had. So how did that come about, and how did that go?
So basically you're asking in like 2017 when I left drifting, like why did I leave drifting and how did it go?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And how's what caused the transition, and how did that transition go? Because you're leaving a sport you love to pursue maybe something else. So how was that whole time period in your life there, making that transition?
Yeah, I would say, and Ben, sorry, your mic is so quiet, but I tried to piece it together. But yeah, I would say that transition was literally the most difficult time in my entire life. Like it was so difficult. And the position I was in was basically, between, let's say, like Enjuku Racing, BC Racing, and others. I'm able to create small amounts of money to make the drifting happen. And the results that I felt like I was giving those companies was terrible. And I had been doing the same thing for, let's say, 3 years with, in my mind, terrible results. And, I'm driving from Florida to Seattle and I'm just over it. Like I had been drifting since I was a kid. I just was like, I cannot figure this out. And I literally told myself, like, I'm going to go back to creating and doing what I know I can physically do. And I'm going to let drifting go. and if it is meant for me, then it'll come back to me. And so I was able to let Enjuku Racing know, like 3/4 or maybe a half to 3/4 of the 2017 season, that I would be moving back to Texas and I was just going to take a break. And I think that was very difficult for both parties. You know, looking at it now, maybe there was value that they believed in me, but I also didn't believe the value in myself. So I let them down a little bit to try to get myself to get to a place where I could, you know, learn and progress. Yep. And so then I remembered moving to Texas and, you know, looking at it now, like I didn't have a shop to start the business. I didn't have a location or anything. I didn't even have a name. And I just knew that I needed to do it. And so I did it. And then I was literally like missing it so much. I screen printed for the first year, and I would literally just like print for people like Grip Royal and just send them shirts and be like, love ya. Sorry, I'm not drifting. Here's some shirts. And just started kind of giving back to the community through screen printing for no real reason. Yeah. And I just remember cleaning, like power washing and cleaning screens, like by myself at 11 o'clock at night, just like thinking about drifting and like running lines in my head. And I was what am I doing?
Right. Yeah. And so, and at this point, your car was just kind of parked
under the press.
Under the
I swear to God, I think I literally had my first, you know, my first location was like just freaking larger than like 900 square feet. You know what I mean? It was like, so I had a press, a manual press, an oven, a race car, and like some shelves. And I just started screen printing because I had known that I can do that. And I knew that like people would need t-shirts and I can make team gear, and I enjoyed designing it and I enjoyed that creative process. And I was so burnt out with drifting that I just thought, I'm going to let this thing go. And if it comes back, it'll come back. And yeah, so I did 12 months not touching a steering wheel or a pedal.
Wow. Oh, wow. So where'd you get the name for the shop?
So the shop's LLC is like Rhythm Print Supply. So Rhythm for me like worked with drifting in the idea of like you need to get into a rhythm when you're in the car. And then Print Supply just felt like industrial and scalable. But I will say I did 2000, let's call it 18 by the time I actually found a location. So through 2018 to 19, and then like middle of 19, basically the phone just keeps ringing asking for 144 and Nate, like where's Nate, where's 144, where's Nate, where's 144. And really the industry, I guess, just couldn't connect with rhythm, right? Because it is kind of artsy fartsy and has nothing to do with Nate or 144. So I just realized like, damn it. All right, I'm just gonna turn this thing, DBA it as 144's Print House and Race Studio. So we did that just a few years ago.
Yeah. Is there any significance in the number?
Yeah, there is for sure. So I'm going to give you the skinny version and then you guys can dive in if you want. But basically, you got to remember it would rain. I would look at the radar. I'd be like, yo, it's going to rain. I would text about 4 people. Hey, meet me at this industrial park. You bring the cone. I'll bring the jack. Tonight we're doing like counterclockwise donuts. And then we were like, okay, cool. And then it would rain. And then I would text. And then you bring the cone. I'll bring the jack. We're doing clockwise donuts. Okay, cool. So we really had this like scene where we all knew if it rains, we don't even have to bring tires. And then we just started doing a donut to the left, a donut to the right. Let's put them together. We're doing figure eights. And, you know, drifting was just so new back then. So now here we go, right? Following the story. From there, I get like the 240 and then I got to go to the XTC event. So I go to XTC, I land in New Jersey, I roll up and I've got the number that I had picked was 44. This kind of comes from a childhood friend of mine who had passed away. He loved Brett Favre and the number 4. So he like, basically like, I just kind of had 4 in mind. And then when I started drifting, I realized like I'll have 4 for Tyler and 4 for me. So I'll be 44. So then I go to New Jersey, I roll in, and the first thing I see is this huge Mobile One race trailer. And it's Ryan Turek and Steve Angerman And of course, Ryan Turek is number 44.
44.
And I'm like, damn,
Shoot.
I'm screwed, man.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do? How do I keep the 444 for Tyler and me? So I thought of Travis Pastrana with the 199, and I just thought,
Okay.
I'll be 144.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
That's interesting. Like there's
That's a
sometimes
lot. Yeah.
no that there's that, and that's pretty cool because a lot of times people overlook the number,
Yeah.
and a lot of people will be surprised how much thought goes actually into picking a number.
yeah.
And the history behind it. Like you said, I mean that's a pretty deep history behind that number and what made you come up with that. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool. So
yeah.
so now you're 144 Print House, and you think once you made that transition, do you think you started to be able to market yourself better with that number? You think it definitely made a difference just by the name?
I don't think the name, I don't think the name, I think if like I would have stuck with rhythm, it probably would be the same as today.
Oh, okay.
It's just branding, but I think that 144, as vague as it is, will work for me in the future where I would like to take the company. But yeah, like I definitely think being in motorsports and screen printing has really elevated the brand to be relatable. Like we print for like road racing stuff as well and off-road stuff. And so just the fact that I drive and print seems to be a good, value prop, if you will, like something that is relatable. But yeah, I mean, I definitely enjoy 144's Print House and Race Studio as the brand right now.
Right. Yeah. So it's you went from kind of being young into Formula Drift, right? Dropping out of that, like you said, make that transition, maybe not the easiest. Now you're making a transition, even though you have experience in that field. How was it becoming your own boss and building that brand?
It was on.
Yeah.
It was on. Yeah. Yeah. I felt like I was lusting over drifting. I was missing drifting more than anyone. I felt like I had the skill, kind of like I would say, like growing up with, Denofa and Will Parsons and Pat Gooden and, kind of seeing Matt Field rise to the man he is today. Like, I feel like I'm in that same category, just a little bit less experience in the field, if you will, meaning like putting together programs and things like this. But yeah, going into like 2019, I launched the Endless Search for Tires tour. So at this moment, I did not have a tire sponsor. And I knew, while screen printing and going drifting, I really would need a tire sponsor. So I literally titled the tour like Endless Search for Tires Tour. And I kind of spun off the Endless Search for Summer, which is like a surf thing. But
right.
So I kind of tried to make it like known that I was looking for a tire sponsor through marketing. And I found Accelera Tires on Instagram. I called them and they immediately hung up the phone. I called them again and they hung up the phone. And then I just had to buy the tires and I immediately did a giveaway and I had everybody tag, the direct line to where I was trying to talk to. And that kind of sparked, a flame. And then I went on to do the tour. And by the end of that tour, like obviously like the, the management came up to me and they're like, Nate, the Endless Search for Tires tour is over. We'd love to pick you up and offer you free tires. So
awesome.
I was able to actually start understanding how to bring brands value. And that has been helping me over the last, 3 years.
Wow. I mean, you're figuring it out on your own. You didn't really have anybody holding your hand along the way, did you?
No, it's definitely out of necessity, like I talked to my dad, let's say, and it's like, man, maybe in 2012, if we would have hired like some sort of, manager or some sort of like athlete relation or something to guide me in some of these deals, we probably could have done this a lot earlier. But given that, dad and I had no real background in motorsports, we were just like any other kid right now that's watching this that may be starting. And then I just, out of necessity, needed to drift and I needed to start making it make sense. And so I had to screen print my face off long enough and think through it in order to get to do it,
Wow.
You've definitely been more of a personable driver than a lot of the other drivers, I could say, is like listening to anytime I've ever saw an interview with you, whether back in Formula Drift or just even now, you're much more, I don't know, animated, more vocal than and can express yourself a lot better than a lot of other drivers can.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. I'm surprised. I don't even know how to say it. Like,
How it just, the professionalism comes natural.
yeah, it comes natural for
It
you.
really does come
I
natural.
couldn't
for
hear
you.
any of that.
No.
Oh, really? Oh, shoot.
Ben, you got to work on the.
You got to get
EQ,
this
man.
audio fixed,
Yeah, get
buddy.
the audio
Oh,
fixed.
boy.
Basically, what my brother was saying is that, and so does that mean it's not coming up on the live stream either?
I
then?
don't know.
No, it's good.
Okay, but
Yeah.
so basically, my brother's saying it's just watching you carry yourself so professionally. It seems like it comes natural, even though you may not feel that way. You may feel like, oh, I've grown so much. But every time I've ever seen you or video watched you, you've
Very
always done it.
professional.
Yeah, very professional, and you're not dry, right? You're able to be yourself, but be professional at the same time. So it's definitely one of your key attributes, I would say.
Yeah.
But one thing I do want to ask you is, you taking a break, building a business. Great, things are starting to roll. When was your first competition that brought you out of, I guess, retirement?
It was Holly LS Fest West, and I think that was 2019. Holly LS Fest West. So again, man, literally, like, I'm screen printing, and for those who know about screen printing, it's like you need a frame, you put your graphic on the frame, you load it on your machine, you screen your job, and then you break that emulsion down and you rebuild it, right? So I would do this multiple times for multiple jobs in a day. So I'd have to, because I only had enough workflow, I didn't have a bunch of screens. So I'd need to build a screen, run a job, clean the screen, sit around the shop for the screen to dry, rebuild the screen to then go home and
Oh,
sleep
wow.
for a little bit to go do it the next day. All of this to say, when I decided to go to Holly LS Fest West, it was my first time back in the car, like no practice day, no anything. I bought the Accelera tires and I went to Vegas, and I got second place, fresh off the couch after 2 years. And I, again, was like, man, I'm meant for this. Like, I have to drift.
Yeah.
So it's like all of the whole year off, and really like, I felt like I got better at drifting by taking that year off, which me and Aaron Losley on Lone Star Drift would argue over that approach. But for me, it worked out, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we got to go to LS Fest for our first time not too long ago. Yeah, East. Yeah, over in Kentucky.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Really impressed. They had like over 60,000 spectators. It was insane. And me and Ben had the opportunity to do the announcing for the drifting portion. It was a great time. And we're looking forward to going back next year. Absolutely.
Yeah,
okay.
They run a good show out there. I know Swan does a good job on grid and running the drifting, and it's cool to watch those events grow, right? Like, I think I won Holly LS Fest East maybe 2020 or something, like the next year after
Awesome.
that as well. But dang, I'm gonna mess that date up. Don't quote me on that. But yeah,
No, that's
like,
fine. That's
it's cool to
fine.
watch all these events grow. Like, drifting is growing in the grassroots to pro-am scene, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That-
we've seen it a lot here. I don't know if you can hear me.
can you hear my brother?
Can you hear me now?
No,
No. Okay.
It's
Okay,
through-
you
I don't know
tell.
what's going on.
Damn
All right.
it.
So what were we gonna say, Paul? I'll translate. Yeah, give me.
But no, I was talking about how the scene has grown here.
Oh yeah,
You
and
can- you can talk
that's
about that.
actually
Yeah.
where I was going to go too. Is that you mentioned that, and I want to kind of touch on that. We experienced it. At least we're experiencing it in the aspect of Florida drifting scene, right?
Yeah.
We in the last 2 or 3 years, or maybe probably just maybe a year or so before Klutch Kickers did their first major season, we saw an influx of drifters and the need for tracks. And Florida for us is now like a mecca, kind of, not really a mecca, because I think California and that's really always going to be that. But for us, what it turned into is just phenomenal, right? Growth that. You go to a drift event and you're easily getting 30 drivers every event, even though they're doing them all the time. More than that. I'm just saying, back then, if you got 30 drivers when we were running drifting events,
We were
that
happy.
was like, oh, it's a slammed event.
Yeah.
So I guess my question to you is, where do you see drifting going from here?
Man, that's a good question. I think I think I've been around a little bit to kind of see the tide like rise and then, the tide kind of come up and go down and come up and go down. But, I think to shout out Florida, it's like I love Florida, and I think Florida is a really good like training grounds for drifting. I know when I lived there with Injuku racing, it was nice basically having less of the seasons, if you will. And like, I think if you're living in Florida, it's easier to just stay on all year. Where obviously, like in Texas, even let's say when it gets super, super cold, whatever it be, like your local car meets might kind of calm down for a few months and you got to build them back up. So I think like Florida as a physical location is just beautiful for drifting all year. And I think that kind of roots rad drivers. Obviously, like Northeast is still killing it too, and the cold, you can get through it, right? But I think drifting will be something that hopefully carries a vibe like skateboarding, where the lifestyle of drifting becomes something that we talk much more about, and the competition of drifting is just something that we get to like add and brag about. But I'm hoping that like companies lean into drivers that are just active in drifting and not necessarily like how many trophies you have. In my world, it's kind of like there's so many rad skateboarders that create like super epic skate episodes or like, your video projects. And then they may never, ever want to do Street League, right? So like there's so many rad street drifters out there who never, ever want to compete in Klutch Kickers. And I'm hoping that like those dudes also get airtime and get momentum and become the lifestyle of drifting, which I think is a little bit like underrated at the moment. And then obviously the competitions are very highlighted, but the competitions to me are just so muddy and they're so clunky and they take so long, and it's so, it's like I get frustrated at them at times. So I'm hoping that also competition drifting, something happens and the ice breaks and it becomes like this whole new world of like competition drifting in the future too,
Yeah. KDF, bro. KDF. I just want to touch on, I know you want to get some, but let me just touch because I will forget. I'm getting to that point. And I forgot.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I forget. I'm telling you, like I had
dude, you gotta write it down. Like
I gotta start getting.
Okay, you want me to? I want to ask my question, or you?
Yeah, go ahead. You have a? Can you hear Ben? Can you hear my brother?
I don't know.
Can you hear me now?
Sure.
No. You can't hear.
Okay. Just talk louder.
I have an odd question. You don't have to answer it. The pictures in the background. What is that? Fred Flintstone?
Yeah,
I can only see one.
Right. Yeah, so it's like a local artist here in Dallas that we work with a lot at the print house is Diamond O'Brien. So yeah, he does like this is Mrs. and Mr.
Oh, that's really cool.
So yeah, for my lady and I, he drew these up.
Oh, that's awesome.
I remember.
See, I knew that. I knew that.
Would give you time to remember.
Yeah, I would give you time.
Okay, so we're talking about the competition. This is something I just want your thoughts on this. Maybe I'm crazy, but we've had this conversation. How there's a thing called the gravedigger effect. Have you ever heard of that phrase?
No.
So did you ever watch monster truck racing when it first started? It was like they would actually race. Long time ago, they would race.
Oh,
and then
right.
And it was a race. It was exciting. There was talent there. And then it got to the point where they started catering to the spectators and they put in a small area and just started doing these stunts and stuff. It was no longer a race. It was more like this spectator thing. But we also call it the gravedigger effect when you have certain characters, right, that people want to win, right? They show up, they want to win. But do you see that for drifting where it's going to get less of like so much about the driver doing what they have to do, and it's going to evolve to like a spectator,
more of the driver's personality,
more of a driver's personality, more of like wrestling, right? Like you start getting the drivers engaged, and I think that'd be cool in one aspect, but I can see as a lot of drivers probably drop out. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't really know. Like, I don't think like like if I look at drifting right now and I look at the guys who love to drive, I think for the most of us, we don't really want to be a cartoon character, right? Like, or we don't want to be, like an action figure. We want to drift, and we want to win races, and we want to drift more and win more races. And I think you will watch like on the top 16 ceremonies when we're all just like, what's up? You know what I mean? Like I don't think, well, I'm speaking for myself here, but it's
Right.
like, you know, so for me, like, and I know I talked to Denofa about this as well, and he was the opposite of me. But for me, I would love for drifting to at some level be more about like driving more and the consumables being a little bit less. So imagine if you were able to like say, you know, you had 16 cars, and let's just imagine like, I don't know, let's say qualifying was about racking up points, and you had a 30-minute qualifying session, and there was all this like computer animated math that like was on your car, and you would run into your session would start, you'd run into the pits, tires go, and as you take a lap, you rack up points, and then you come back and you take a lap and you rack up points. So whichever car could stay out the longest in the 30 minutes, you're racking up points. The drivers get an extreme amount of time in the car, and the crew has to be quick with it, right? Like, like you want to really, really like specialize the crew to be quick on the pits, back out into drifting, and then back into the pits to refill, tires go. And then when the 30-minute ends, the crew that kept the car out the longest would rack up the most points. And that's kind of like some form of qualifying, let's call it. Like, this is where my mind's at. I just want to drive more. And I wish we could drive more.
Right. Well, but see, there is two different aspects of it, and I see both sides because as a driver, I want to drive more. Something like that. I've never heard an idea like that. I think that's pretty cool. But then you look at the other aspect is that what drives major sports? It's going to be the fans. And even when me and Ben are announcing, a lot of times we'll ask questions out to the audience that we already know the answer to. Right. And sometimes I'll see the judges and like they'll look over us like why are you even asking that question? It's not about whether we know it. We have to understand the audience. You may have people that have no idea about drifting, and you got to speak in a certain way that you can keep them engaged. Right. Because we're not commentating for the drifters. We're commentating for the new fans and those fans that maybe have been around for a little while. So sometimes we say certain things that are like, duh, like, yeah, we know that, but the average person may not. So
well, let me ask you this. How many times do you call a show or call a race, and when you're whatever, 64 to 32 to 16 to 8, like how many times are you guys actually confused about who won? Or do you feel like for the most you're literally like, I know who won and why? Or are there more times where you're like, how did they win? How did that dude beat that dude?
No, I think for the most part, me and Ben already, because we've judged before in the past.
Yeah.
And we're watching everything from where the judges are.
Yeah.
So for the most part, I think we know who's going to win already. There are some times when they're watching it over and over again, they're analyzing certain things, and you'll hear me and Ben. It's like, well, he dropped a tire here. That maybe if you ever watch it, we'll be trying to pick apart the run as they do the replays. Ben, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're at it. There's maybe like a few instances, but very, very few, where we'll be like, okay, what happened? And then it's something that we missed. So that's the problem. Like oftentimes we'll see it for the first time, and then we'll be like, okay, well maybe we're not seeing something. And then one of the judges will actually explain it to us, and we're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Like I remember one time it was Taylor Hall over at Emerald Coast, right? And there was something that he did.
Oh, he drove. Yeah, the rolling burnout.
The rolling burnout. Yeah,
that was the thing that we're like, oh,
didn't even see that.
Once they told us about it, we went back to the replay. We're like, okay, that makes a whole lot more sense now.
Yeah, it was a little different then too, is because we weren't watching it from where the judges were at Emerald Coast. We were on the other side of the track.
But still, there was a very valid point. Once they explained it to us, then we knew exactly what they meant.
Yeah. Right. But I will say I called your win. There was discussion discussion in the booth because Connor O'Sully's freaking car is a rocket, right?
Oh yeah.
And you know, there was discussion in the booth. I was like, oh, Connor's probably gonna take it. I was like, no, I know what's gonna happen. Nate's been driving extremely consistent. Connor's going to get over anxious and he's going to knock himself out of competition. And it's basically exactly what happened.
You're fast forwarding.
I am fast forwarding. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, no, you didn't give me a timeline here.
Relax. Okay. Hey, what's the matter here?
Yeah, forget about it.
I got a question for Nate though. I wanted to ask you, going back to the community, how are you or perhaps your business involved in your local community? Doesn't necessarily have to be drifting per se, but I just want to know exactly like how are you involved in your local community?
I mean, in Denton, it's very creative. So I would say currently the print house is damn near built by everyone from Denton. You know, like
Oh, wow.
Adrian came out of Denton. My graphic designer came out of Denton. Like my other mechanic, Brandon, came out of Denton. So, I mean, I would say like moving the shop to Denton helped me be in more of a creative area. From there, like, um, I'm trying to think about it, like as far as like fundraisers or donations to things in the town, I'm not doing that as much.
Maybe mentoring.
Oh, mentoring for sure. Yeah, we do like so we use kind of the print house sometimes as a studio to train people how to print. There's a lot of times where kids will walk in and not understand the process of printing. And so I get to walk them through that, or they could even, you know, rent the shop for a day and then they'll come in and then they'll just use the equipment and like train with me. And then from there, it makes me feel good because that's how I started. And also, you never know where we're going to grow into. And it's cool to kind of cultivate those people from the grassroots level as well. So, and going back, so not to turn the conversation around too much here, but going back to that, playing Formula Drift on at the shop, having straight creative kids that are just like ink, graphics, and t-shirts, they're watching drifting and they're like, how did he win that? Or how does this even work? So I get perspective on people who don't know drifting. And it seems that at times it can be very, very hard to comprehend like who won and why. You know what I mean? That's why I was asking you guys. Obviously, y'all have a keen eye for it now, but it's like to the average neighbor, it's like, yo, I won a drift race. Check my runs out. And it's like, how'd you win that? Or like, how'd that guy not beat you?
Right.
And there's a
Yeah,
lot of friction
exactly.
there, you know?
Right. I think the one of the challenges, and I'm sure Tim can attest to this, is that is we. I mean, one of the things is we want to point out is like we have a lot of trust and confidence with the judges, and so even though if we have any sort of doubt towards it, they're willing to actually make us understand and see exactly. Okay, this is what you missed. It's like okay, that makes complete sense. But at the same time, one of the difficult tasks is basically to relay that information that they give to us and put it in a sort of palatable layman term sense for the audience to understand, because some of the terminology can be a little bit too complicated for the average viewer to be able to kind of digest.
But
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
what Tim,
But that's what I'm saying. Even on the concept of like, hey, Nate, where do you see drifting going? I'm like, in 10 years, I bet there's a series that none of us have thought about that is much more easy to comprehend. And maybe it's about more laps that give you results. And then they understand that car stayed out on the track longer and racked up those points. And he got the higher qualifying. And then when they went head to head, the math showed this or that. Like it could turn into something like that in the future, which is what I would put my money on.
well, I was going to go back to your point with monster trucks. To me, like I don't know. I mean, I don't know how exactly it's judged, but it seems like it's all about the wow factor, right?
Right.
So if you're wowing the crowd, right? I mean, it's pretty easy to see who wins. That seems like it's what it is right now.
And that would frustrate drivers like crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to imagine that happens in
Well, and you see that on the live stream comments, right? That's exactly what you see in the live stream comments.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have your grave diggers out there that everybody wants to see win, and whether I mean their engine can blow up, and still they can still blame it on the other guy, right? It's just nothing. You know, the person can do no wrong, but then you have the other extreme where the person can't do anything right either, right? So you have your lovers and you have your haters of certain drivers, and that's what's gonna. It's an unfortunate thing. It brings spectators to the sport, and what do sponsors want to see? They want to see the numbers. So it's like a double-edged sword, because if you go too far in one direction, you either alienate the fans or you alienate the drivers. So it's got to be that middle ground, right? Making it technical and entertaining is definitely something that drifting is going, I think, to build the sport and keep the drivers engaged is where it's going to have to go.
Right. But,
Yeah,
and
it's like-
sorry, Nate, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I think I would just want to say to Nate's point that I think what I see what he's getting at is
Yeah,
sort of in
that's what I'm
relates to
saying.
what you see in like regular racing,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like it's the fastest car around the track, where you could actually mark down with a stopwatch
Right.
exactly,
Okay.
and then so he's sort of
figuring out something where the fans can automatically tell who won. It doesn't need to. It's not subjective. They don't have to know the line and all of this. I mean, with drifting judging, you have to know all these certain criteria to be able to say this guy won and this guy lost. You know what I'm saying? It needs to be something where somebody can easily see, okay, I see why this guy won, without having to know, hey, this is what the lines was, and this was the decel zone.
Well, that's how skateboarding and surfing is. I could turn on watch a skateboard competition, and sometimes I don't know that certain tricks are worth more than others, right?
No, I got you.
Yeah. Yeah, see, we're not there yet, right? We got to wait for the 10 years to pass so it'll come around. But something along those lines, I think something in drifting will change big time that will allow all of the drivers to feel like there's a fresh breath of air. Right, and
I gotcha.
It'll just reinvent the sport at some scale. And I just think somewhere down the line that'll happen.
Yeah, it's going to have to be assisted with technology, because
Mad Mike sold what was that called? God, what was that called?
Mad Mike.
Mad Mike
Drift
had
shifters.
drift. Yeah, he had the whole that one.
Yeah,
that was kind of cool
that's
because he had a whole point system.
Those type of events like birth concepts like that, right? Like, hey, Chris Forsberg gets 20 seconds. There's a shipping container. There's a 18-wheeler. There's a K-rail section. Go rack up points. And then he takes his run, he racks up points, and then there's, I think, a style bonus or something on it, and then that's your result. And so it's mathematical, yet stylish, and somewhere in that blurriness will become the new sport of drifting in 20 years, you know?
Maybe like teams, like, you know, instead of tandeming against somebody, you're like teams versus teams, and they're going out together tandeming.
I mean, there's, you're right. It's going to be something that we're not thinking about, right? And it takes it to the next level, because I'm sure there's nothing that we're spitting out that somebody else has a thought of already, right?
Right.
So, oh, what, Klutch Kickers?
Yes.
Oh, we're supposed to talk about Klutch Kickers?
Well, then ask him.
That's what?
Asking about what?
What am I asking? You know the question. I don't know the question.
All right. So my question is how did Klutch Kickers come about in for you?
So, man, I was in it early. I got a phone call from Michael Castleberry, and he basically had mentioned that the Holt, drag strip had an opportunity for them to lay some asphalt down. He was able to invite me out to Florida to kind of walk and talk the track layout. So I actually walked that with, Zach and Zach, Matt, and Austin, and obviously Nick Castleberry and Michael Castleberry. And I remember it just being sand. And we were talking a little bit about how to make, the track flow and what their ideas were. And then, from there, I've just watched him do everything he said he would do, just one step at a time. He built the track when they debuted the season. Obviously, I was doing grassroots tours, so this was a perfect fit for me to sign myself back up for the mindset of I get 5 rounds to try to win a championship, and that's what I lusted over in Formula Drift. So it just worked out perfect. And then I ran their first season, second, and now third, right?
Yeah. So 3 seasons into it, what's your thoughts on the growth of Klutch Kickers?
Yeah, I think it's insane for them, man. I think it's one of those things where they didn't expect it to be what it is today. I think it's got a lot of grassroots in its heart, at its core. There's not a lot of rules. There's no tire rules. There's no real limitations on vehicle weight or power. So it's the wild, wild west where all the drivers just really have to sign up to be the best they can be and then go compete. And that kind of ties into that wow factor, right? When you got a dude shout out to let's say Honadale, who can put 900 horsepower down, blow smoke in every section. He's obviously going to physically look to the crowd like he is murdering it. And then you guys up in the bird's eye view, or the judges, realize, he's 2 feet off the outer zone. Nate's 1 foot off the outer zone. Nate gets the win. You know what I mean? There's just those little things like that that happen at Klutch Kickers that are exciting, and also a double-edged sword, because you get those drivers who love the wild, wild west vibe, and then you get the drivers who are I wish we were all on the same tire. This is unfair.
Yeah, actually, I was going to talk to that, because I actually was in a conversation where I had somebody saying, "Oh, I love Klutch Kickers. That's a run what you brung kind of series."
That's me.
And yeah, it was, but that you weren't there. This was different people.
Oh, but I feel that way.
You feel that way. And then I had somebody else who was like, "No, that's not fair, man. It's just ridiculous. Obviously, they're going to win. They have all this power." And I just got to witness this debate that we've seen and heard many times. What are your thoughts on that? Because you are more in the higher horsepower, more experienced pro level, right? Because you were pro. What are your thoughts when you hear somebody just saying, "Oh, it should be all. They should have more rules"? Do you like the way it is, or do you think there should be a change?
No, I love the way it is. I really enjoy the Wild Wild West version because I think there's more series you could go join that are super restricted.
Right.
So I think that they're being a bit more rare with their actions, that they're not putting a lot of rules on it. And I think for whoever, right, like whether it be Denofa or myself or Josiah, like I think being able to put whatever car you want together and bring it there is exciting because, like I said, there's other series we could just go run that are going to make us run this tire and this power plant or this thing and that thing. So I really, really enjoy it. And I really enjoy my last race results on the 651 Sport tire because this tire is never claiming to be a Nitto or a Federal or a Valino or a GT Radial. And I was able to battle people on a GT Radial on a, you know what I mean? Like I was able to accomplish the goals I was to accomplish on a tire that maybe people would say couldn't win.
Yeah, you're definitely able to pull out. But I agree. I agree with Paul. I like the run what you brung, the unlimited, no holes barred.
I'm just waiting for something insane to come out of there. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, like it just makes things just like diabolical.
Yeah.
Like,
But what's great about it is look at a driver like Connor O'Sully, right? It gave him the opportunity. I mean, he's only been in drifting for not even 2
came in
years.
season 2.
Came in season 2, maybe 2 years under his belt of drifting in general. It gave him a platform and it helped mold him and put him in a level of competition. I don't think he would have progressed if he was just doing fun days or little competitions on a skid pad or whatever. I think the Klutch Kickers being unlimited the way it is pushed him. And I think also with Jaden Martirana, I think him as well, being a young kid, being in that level of competition, not, in the middle of the pack. He's not near the high horsepower numbers. He's right in the middle of the pack. So I think it's great what they're doing. But I hear a lot of times, and you see it in the chat, this is unfair. Adam LZ, blah blah. He's running 455 wide tires in the back, and that shouldn't be allowed, right? So I love it, and I've loved watching it grow. And I admitted before in the past when they first came out, I was a pessimist, right? I was like, okay, here we go. It's another one. Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see how long this lasts, because they really did change the drifting in the States, right? The payouts. Now we have other events doing these big payouts. Before Klutch Kickers, you didn't have that.
Yeah, they were right. They were definitely right on the cusp of like what we would call like the shootout events, right? Like I think North Dakota, the SRD stuff up there was doing the 10K shootouts maybe like 1 year before them. But other than that, it was like very, very vague. And then when Klutch Kickers started doing it, I think you really started to see everyone pick it up and go, damn, if we could put a 15K purse up or a 10K purse, dudes are going to those. And so then that sparked that whole scene. But yeah, going back to the no rules thing, I mean, I definitely think it's something they should lean into and then market and say like, run what you brung. And this makes sense to hopefully the people that are watching it, because it's supposed to be that way. It's meant to be a bit more free and available. And if Adam can get his hand on a 315 Nitto, then cool, right? Like, I still feel like at round 5, I could beat him. I just have to run the proper line. I have to be more like sharper than him, and it's possible. So I think like that mindset is all I can do in a series like that, because I've got 600 horsepower. I'm on a tire that a lot of dudes claim can't win, and then I get to do it.
Right.
Because you know what I want to see is one of those like 4,000 horsepower semis.
Take up the whole track. I can't. Yeah.
Do you remember that? Have you seen those races where they drift the semis?
A long time ago, not recently.
But they somebody's got to show up with that.
Well,
they can't. The rule book
I want to
doesn't
see that.
against
I
it.
want to see that on
There's
oval.
nothing in the rule book.
Imagine that thing on an oval.
I don't care. It'd be hilarious.
Let's talk about that, right? I feel like from my perspective, I hear more about should we drift on the infield or should we drift the bank? And is Klutch Kickers a series for the grassroots drivers, or is it a series to prepare guys to go into a Formula Drift or a higher competitive series?
I'm saying
So
more bank.
when we did the last 2 rounds, we were obviously in Holt, and that's a very limited, call it karting track, if you will. And so there was no real discussion. This was the track we were going to drive on. All the drivers, whether you were pro or driving for the second time ever, you were going to drive on that track. Where now we're like, you guys want to run a bank at 114 mile an hour wheel speed, or do you want to run an infield, at 90 mile an hour wheel speed? And there's certain drivers who would love to just run the infield with no walls and no K-rails and no bank. And then there's, right, like a X amount of us that love the gnarly shit. So to me, that debate is even more alive than what car you're bringing,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the bank is
We need more bank.
So being in Florida, we had a lot of oval tracks, and so we're kind of used to that down here. And I think riding the bank is probably one of the most fun I have. It when I'm on the bank and you hit it right, and it's just you don't want to get off. You want it to last. It's a lot of fun.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, so I don't see. I like the bank. I think it has element of just excitement for not just the drivers, but also pushing those drivers past the limit. What, you got something, Ben?
No, go ahead, finish.
But pushing them, but also this as a spectator watching you guys ride that wall and tandem around that freaking wall is just exciting.
Right, but I just wanted to mention that the drivers that are going crazy for the infield, right? They're thinking like, oh, we don't have walls to worry about or K-rails or anything. Do they not? Are they forgetting with the grass? And what kind of danger that posed? Like, look at what happened this past weekend.
Yeah.
Look at it. We had almost cars just flip over, roll over. And like, I was like, what is going on over here? This is insane.
Yeah.
It's like saying when you sign up for a drifting race or a drifting event, it's going to get gnarly either way. Like whether we're running the bank, whether we're running the infield. My feedback to the Klutch Kickers was basically just like, being that you have 5 rounds and you can design the layouts differently, whether it even be clockwise, counterclockwise layouts, I was hoping to see all 5 rounds present a new layout. And I know as a driver, when you give us different layouts, whether it literally be like enter into the left or enter into the right, it does a lot for you to walk into an event and have a whole new, like, let's call it to have a whole new like set of timing, you know what I mean, like a whole new experience on the same location, but you have a whole new experience. And I'm kind of like sad that we keep running the same layouts that appear to have worked. Like I think round 5 is what the same layout as was it 3? Right, so here we are again, and it's like I just wish we could get creative with it and at least make the layout a bit different, because as a driver, then it challenges them dudes to set your car up maybe, or do it to the left instead of the right. Like, I just wish each round would be different.
Yeah.
I wish we could do a bank to bank.
Yeah, he wants to bank to bank.
That'd be cool.
That'd be sick. Yeah, like bank, switchback, bank.
Yeah.
That'd be sick.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we'll start honing in on this season for you, right? Because got a lot of good background, got a lot of information, and but let's kind of hone in on this season. So, how did the season start for you?
The season started pretty good. I want to say that I knocked myself out in the top 16 against Taylor Hull when I hit him.
Right.
And then from there, I went on to the tour, and I was able to go to Hyperfest, and I had started to see symptoms of an issue with my car. And then I had went to Grid Life Midwest in Michigan, and I had blown my motor completely. And then I had worked with Golan Engines, and we needed this specific part that basically took way longer than anyone expected. And so I had to rent the Corvette for round 2 and 3, which was a challenge and a breath of fresh air at the same time.
Really?
Again, going back to like the creature comforts versus getting to work, let's say, when I got in the Corvette, it felt weird. I was so unsure. I've never driven a Corvette. So I had to go to work. Like I had to quickly pick up the pace, realize that I needed to make this car, I needed to make the car have results. And that went pretty well for me. I felt good in the Corvette, and then again, it was just round to round kind of commitments to Zach, and from there, I just still didn't have the engine back, so I had to commit again for round 3. And then round 4, basically, right, just threw the motor in the car. Within 1 week, we put a motor in it. We absolutely rewired the entire chassis.
Oh wow!
And then my boy Adrian drove this thing to Florida, put me in it, and we won the race. So
Oh wow!
the season's been like ups and downs for sure, but I feel like it's going to end well.
Yeah.
What was going on with the subframe?
Dude, I bent the subframe. Like, I don't even know. Like, so I took a run in practice, and I remember exiting the track. So I think about this. I think what happened when I look back on it now. So I think I would run my whole run, finish the run, and when I was coming out of the exit and going up the bank, I was like drifting up the bank. And I think I would just like, that is harder than it looks. Like when, like a lot of the drivers can relate. When you come off that exit and then you're immediately looking up at the bank, it was super dramatic. So I think I just caught my rear end there, and I started to basically push my like tension rod that then started to buckle my like whatever it's called, you know, the tension rod freaking, you know what I'm saying?
The thingamabobber.
Yeah, the thingamabobber.
That hooks up to the whatchamacallit.
The mounting point on the subframe for the tension rod buckled.
Oh, stop with that. Stop with that.
What was that, Paul?
I said technically we've had
so the pavement contacted your vehicle and caused a catastrophic failure. So you didn't.
So going back to that, I finished the run, and it felt like the front end had fallen apart or something. So I was like, "Yo, guys, there's something wrong with the front end. The car is like walking sideways." Then I would go to the pits, and I look at my rear wheel, and I'm like, "Holy shit, this thing is like gone."
Yeah.
But did you guys see me in qualifying?
We saw the wheel.
We saw the wheel. Yeah,
that was
it disconnected in the burnout box.
Oh my god! Yeah, we were shaking. They were shaking. The wheel was shaking.
In the burnout box, basically, we as a team kind of committed to running it, and I barely felt it. Like in the burnout box, I thought everything was going good for qualifying. Hit the start line. Adrian actually radioed in and said, like, "Yo, Nate, your wheel's sideways right now," and I just took off, and I completed the whole run, and everyone was like, "How did you do that?" And we just had to, because we wouldn't have had the time, you know?
Right. Yeah. Right.
One thing I wanted to ask you, because you have a lot this year going on. I mean, you had the car taking place. You were trying to learn a new car with the Corvette, and you brought a child into this world. So there was a lot on your plate this year, and I'm sure it was not only a challenge to learn the car, learn the tracks, and manage your personal life. So how did you go about to handling all of it, and how do you, at the same time, how do you stay focused? How do you stay in the game?
Well, look, I think like remembering 2017 when I wasn't drifting and I was at a print shop from sun up to sundown, my perspective has changed. So, you know, having car issues feels a little bit easier now, because I'm just so grateful for that, right? And then having a kid with my wife, of course, was like a moment that we needed, that we didn't even know we needed. So it feels much more like a lot of blessings are coming in. And then going back to the crew conversation, from being a young man to the man I am today, it's like I can work with Adrian, and I can manage Adrian, and Adrian can call all of the sponsors and order the parts, and you know, he's just sending me approvals, and then we're operating as a real team. And so really it does look like a lot is going on, and trust me, it feels like it too. But at the same time, it's really delegated out well right now, where everyone's got their thing they're doing, and you know, we're all complimenting each other. So it's just working, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to have the knowledge, but it's a whole nother thing to have that experience, and going the route. While you can look back and say, oh, it was a tough road, but the lessons you've learned along the way, and as you said, it's different now, right?
Yeah.
You're back in it. You could pick it, and back then, trying to be you're a young driver, so you're trying to be a boss and a friend, and you know that's not easy, right? because you want your people to do certain things, but at the same time you're trying to maintain that friendship. But as you get older, you find a way to start that way off the bat. So there is no expectation, and everything's understood from the beginning. And now you're okay. I'm budgeting this, because having somebody come along and you're just paying their way for them can get bitter. And it's like, so we used to do events, right? So we'd have track workers, and you're like, where did he go? I'm like, well, I can't really yell at him because he's doing it for nothing, right?
I know.
So couldn't afford to pay him. So it's like you can only expect so much.
Yeah.
But that's not going to take you that far. So learning how all those years of experience and mistakes, you can say they're mistakes, or you can say, hey, listen, there were lessons learned, and you're able to take that and use it moving forward. We've seen it when we've seen it in your driving. And I think going from the vet for you was almost like when you watch like Dragon Ball Z, right? You're seeing this fight scene, and then next thing you know, well, I've been wearing this 100-pound vest. Now let's fight. It's like that's basically what it seemed like. What the vet was training like with weights for you.
Yeah.
Getting back in your car, you just seem way more dialed in, despite the rear end issues.
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly right. Like we talked about, the vet made me think. It made me stay on my toes. It made me like focus on where is this rear wheel, because I've never driven this car. And then when I got back in my car, it just like close my eyes and I can feel everything. I know where it all is. And so I just applied that same focus with the 240. And then I was like, holy shit. And I would just watch some tape from my spotter and be like, I'm on the edge of the track. If I just do this every time and don't try any harder than this, like everyone else better be on the edge of the track, or else I'm going to be further out than them, and I'm going to run a better lead line. Yeah. And something I will say, which was super interesting, with the rear wheel having an issue in qualifying, I remember throwing the car in and kind of feeling this weird like stick, and then I missed my line. So I immediately was like, damn, that was not the best run I've ever done. But I qualified 17th, right? So therefore, I had to chase everybody first. And
that's a good point. Yeah.
That, I think, was a huge advantage. I loved it. I loved it. Like, I don't know. Right. I think it put the pressure on them. They had to do a good lead run. Most of them would dirt drop or make some small mistake. And then in my ear was just like, yo, just do exactly what you've been doing. Like, don't do anything extra. They've already made a mistake. Run your lead line. And so that gave me the freedom to be like, oh shit, I don't got to do anything extra. Just like, let me just do my thing. And then I would get the win. Then I got the win. Then I got the win. And you know what I mean? It was like, chasing first is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we start seeing him like being
so he's doing it on purpose. He's doing it on purpose.
We start seeing him doing it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So Ben, you have some.
If you see me biff the qualifying next round, you know why.
Yeah. Well, then he's just trying to get in the middle of the pack. He wants to chase first. So Ben, you had something queued up.
Oh yes.
You were showing him something on the screen.
Right, exactly. But actually, I wanted you to kind of go over your team members and what their roles are, and kind of give everybody an understanding of, because we see Nate out on the track in the pits, but we kind of right, and
it's not really
too. But we kind of want to know like who else is around the pit area, because there's so many moving parts that perhaps. This is a good opportunity to kind of let everybody know, like, oh, hey, this is this person in charge of this and so forth. So care to like kind of clue us in as to who's a part of your team?
Yeah, for sure. All right. So you guys got to remember, the foundation of this is me doing my best to build a team that can, let's say, perform at the highest level. So in, let's say, Klutch Kickers, it may be a bit overkill. But basically, I'm trying to prepare my team to, let's say, go into bigger opportunities, right? So with that being said, I'm just using Klutch Kickers as the operations to prepare for moments in the future. So with that, the team basically is comprised of the driver. So I'm the driver. Kind of the operating part is myself. So basically, like, I'm really, really, really letting everybody know what I would like them to do and the reason behind that. And then from there, we get into the crew. So I've got my dad, who always comes to drift events. He loves drifting more than me. He can't stay home on the couch if he wanted to. So Dad basically will take down a lot of our notes. He'll stay plugged into the team's radio and just be ready for anything. He'll, for the most part, he will like just literally like guide me into the proper pit position, right? Like he's always there for me when I return from a practice session or anything. So I don't run over anything dumb in the pits or something. So Dad would like take notes and just guide me and give me a high five. From there, we have Adrian, who really will operate as like the general manager of the team. So Adrian is really keeping his eye on all things race program. And then also being a mechanic as well. And then I have Brandon, who is a mechanic of mine, who specializes in understanding what every socket and bolt is on the car. So he gets to kind of wrench on the car day to day and really realize what everything is. So if there's ever like a 5-minute call, like he knows that car like crazy. And then around the pits, you'll see sometimes Bailey, who is Adrian's lady, and she will either sell merch or she will be answering emails for the print house on the track. And then I'm trying to think. That's really kind of the race team, if you will. So 2 mechanics and Dad, and then some merch activation with Bailey or my lady when she can come with the kid, or Austin, our graphic designer. So yeah, we usually like try to pull someone from the print house and then the race team. So that's really our team. But I know it can look like a ton of people are always around, but yeah. Oh, and my spotter. How am I going to forget my spotter? How am I going to forget that?
Yeah. Actually, now that you mentioned that,
you're gonna do that question?
talking about your spotter. Why don't we hang on, let me see. Where is it at? There it is. Okay, now that I got it. Talking about your spotter, I actually caught him in the job. Like this. Well, you guys won't be able to see it. Paul probably will. Yeah, I'll just pull that.
Okay.
So during competition, there we go. So I don't know how you have. What's the role here? What is his play? His techniques. For all we know, this is something that works for him. That works for you. So perhaps Ketter elaborate, because I gotta tell you, like on a serious note, that every time that I've had the opportunity to go over to Nate's pit, and your spotter is there, and just the wealth of knowledge and information that man is able to spit out just makes me just feel like, well, I don't belong there. Like,
oh really?
Yeah, no, it's seriously though, just the way how he's able to sort of
take
explain
over
things.
Nate's conversation. Well, what Nate's trying to say is we're going through this right now. And Nate's kind of looking at him like, I can explain it to them.
Well,
Yeah.
look, Ben, you're always welcome at our pit. So don't ever feel like you can't fit, you can't hang out. You know what I mean? But so what you're looking at here is Matt. He's probably praying for me at the moment or doing some craziness. But there's a lot of. So Matt is basically my spotter, and he is an OG. Like this dude, he's in it. He is in the sport. He's currently Jeff Jones's spotter in Formula Drift. And he has his roots tied back in drifting before I was born. You know what I mean? Like he is really, really somebody that used to spot for me in pro racing. So he was in Juku racing, Kevin Lawrence and myself. He was our spotter. And I shit you not, like when we go into a qualifying session, we will, at Klutch Kickers, we will go through our qualifying session. And before we even go to the driver's meeting, we will know exactly who we're battling. We will know the top 64. Like he has an Excel spreadsheet that will blow your mind. And this is what he does for his fun. So he is a guru, and he's in my ear, and he's definitely like elevated me in a really positive way,
Yeah, I like from my perspective, I mean, and it's just like very enlightening. The things, the knowledge and stuff. I just sit there, I'm just fascinated by like what he has to say, because he's able to actually just narrow down and sort of extract things that we've mentioned before, how we'll miss details, but he'll go into like such deeper levels that I'm just like, you could just sit there and just be I guess like for me in a way, I'm in a state of trance just listening to this guy with the wealth of information that he's spitting out. So I'm just like, wow, like Nate's in pretty good hands if this guy's his spotter.
Yeah. I just saw go ahead.
Well, for example, like to Ben's point, it's like a little bit of background here is just like we will literally put a gear in for the car for qualifying and a gear in for the car for competition. And these will be like different wheel speeds for different reasons. And again, this is just math on an Excel spreadsheet that gives a result that we're trying to accomplish. And before we had Matt, we just didn't have that information. We didn't have that knowledge. And Matt's just stayed in drifting forever, for multiple years and years and years. And that's like his value, right? Like he can really explain stuff from momentum of car to gearing to RPM levels. Like when someone tells me like, yo, Nate, what's up? I read your logs and I really want you at 6,400 RPM instead of 62 and a half. I'm literally like, how do you know that? You know what I mean? Like, and then it gives me a target to hit. So now maybe I'm on the line for whatever it may be, trying to win the race or not. And instead of worrying about the crowd and everyone and all the things, I'm literally like 6,400 RPM. I better hit this line and I better hit this RPM range because they're going to read the logs and then they're going to tell me. And like, I want to be shot. You know what I mean? Like it holds me accountable. So that is a level of our team that we've never had without Matt. And he's been with me this whole year. So I got to keep booking him, man. He's got to carry us on, you know?
Yeah. So now here's a question. You make the jump back over to FD. Who's going to get him?
I know, right? I know. Well, I guess when Jeff quits FD, I can join it. You know?
Oh, man.
That's
Predict the future.
All right. Let me just go ahead and because the chat is popping tonight.
Yeah, I got actually a question.
Yeah. And then, so first question over here, again from Patrick Gooden. He's a fan. Nate, have you ever had an extremely hungover teammate crash into you for no reason on a skip pad?
Dude, I mean, I don't know how many, like, yes, absolutely, man. Like there's been so many good times in drifting, like, looking back on it, it's so gnarly. And that's what I'm saying about the industry is like, no matter the race results, like me and Pat have gone through so many gnarly moments, terrible moments, cool moments. Like just drifting as a sport is rad. And like, I want to keep that camaraderie alive. But yeah, dude, Pat's the man.
Yeah.
All right.
He had another one for Tim, though.
Yeah, I got another one. Let me just mention that. Question for Tim. I see life jackets behind me, Ben. Does Tim own a jet ski?
Which would go back to the earlier point in the discussion. I may or may not own a jet ski. May or may not. Allegedly own a jet ski. But I wasn't the jet skier that
abandoned you.
Yeah, that abandoned you. No, I don't have one. I don't.
He's got life jackets.
I got life jackets. Me and my wife, we had paddle boards.
They're scared of swimming
for a while, and well, not scared of swimming. My wife likes to be safe, so she wants to make sure everybody has a life jacket. So safety first when I take the family out.
Okay,
you got to get some tips from Honnedale, dude. He used to race jet skis.
Yes, I know. I know. We had him on as well. Yeah, that's.
Do you know about his ferret room?
No.
He has a room full of ferrets.
Yeah.
I do not know that.
Well, yeah, we found out.
He's the ferret whisperer. The ferret whisperer.
He's got a room full of ferrets.
That's a whole other world.
Oh, that's funny.
Follow up in regards to, I guess, the skip pad. He says, New Orleans at NOLA. I need Nate's side of the story from NOLA.
Oh.
Yeah, dude. So we got to remember the hazy memory here. But I remember going to NOLA with Pat. So for BC Racing brought us out to NOLA. Pat Gooden, myself, and Kevin Lawrence. And I want to say the clearest memory is us on a street throwing beer bottles as high as we can and watching them smash, right? So like NOLA was a blur, dude. NOLA was a blur. But the skid, like they let us on the big track. I remember this, and it was super gnarly and fun. I think we had our turbo setups together, and I think that we drag raced. But ask Pat, who won the drag race? Was it Pat or Kevin?
Oh,
what were the vehicles?
What were the vehicles?
We were in our 240s. Pat had
Okay.
his coupe, I had my S13, and Kevin had his S14.
Hmm.
It was super
We're,
fun.
waiting for a reply. We'll
Yeah.
get back to you.
Yeah. Oh, Pat said he won. Pat said he won.
Of course he did.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I thought he did. He jumped the line.
Oh, he jumped the line. Oh, that's funny.
Oh man.
All right, so I usually ask this question to all the drivers. I like you to kind of look back at your career up until this point and give me a contrast, a low moment and a high moment that you could think of off the top of your head.
I mean, I guess you'd say low moments would be in transitions that you didn't know you would maybe keep drifting, right? Like drifting can be something that is very, very taxing to maintain. And you can get your 1, 2, 3 years where you're just like on fire. So for me, I guess you'd say the 2017 season was my lowest moment, where I gave up drifting and I thought I may never drift again, and that was cool. And if it came back, I would drift again. So that was for sure my lowest moment. But again, like out of that brought my best moments. I definitely think, you know, since 2019 to current days have been my most fun with drifting. I feel like I've had the most level head and been able to speak to partners and sponsors on the value of drifting and the value of the lifestyle of drifting. So yeah, I mean, to kind of put it in more of like a pinpoint direction, would say like when you blow a motor and you don't know if you can afford another one, those moments suck. Or if you have to miss races that you've committed to being at, those moments suck. So drifting can suck a lot.
Okay, so now let's I don't know if I'm straight off your timeline here, Ben, but sitting down at the track after the event, how confident were you? Did you think you had it in the bag before we announced it, or were you still like, I'm not too sure?
No, I knew.
Yeah,
Well, because Connor had spun.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that
right.
was
Yeah,
an easy
so
one.
it was an easy one. Yeah,
And
Maybe
to be
actually kinda
honest,
have
I
it.
let
The
it
opposite
that
way
would have been
around.
horrible, right?
You're like, what are you talking about?
to shout out the left side of the bracket here. You know, it's one of those things where I had Savio in the 64, so I felt pretty good. Like I know he's ripping and he's on one, but I felt like I just would be sharp. You know, and then just as I was breaking into the 32s, I'm like, man, I got Naren. He qualified first. And then I got Dirk Stratton, and that dude's like super sharp. And then I had Honadale. And so by the time I got to Connor, and Connor, I love you, but I was just like, I got Connor. You know what I mean? I was like, he does not have as much experience as me. Like I've been able to work through these dudes that like have a ton of experience. So
Yeah.
I had figured I could put on a good show and take Connor out. Again, though, you know, to Connor's point, he has a great car. He has a great crew chief, Andrew. Like he has all the math dialed just as much as we do. And I knew like his car can beat me. It would just be like who fumbles. And I knew on that day, like I wasn't fumbling, you know? So
one of the, and talking about the bracket, that's actually one of the things that we were highlighting in the broadcast, is that we took a look at the bracket and we realized like we
heavy
have
on the left side.
the left side of the bracket, you have the top 4 championship contenders on that side of the bracket, and we're like, okay, this is just absolutely wild what's going to transpire. And it did not disappoint.
Yeah.
And we're just like thinking like, okay, well, Animal Z is not going to have it tough. Jonathan Nairn's not going to have it tough. Like everybody there was not going to have it tough. And
not have it easy.
well, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't going to be easy for anybody involved. Thank you, Tim. So I can't imagine what kind of pressure and what sort of thought process what's going through your mind. I'm sure it's sort of one of those things where you have to think strategically about it, as you not only have to, because remember, like I think it was either Saturday, I forget, where you got the frame fixed.
Right.
And then I'm sure that was maybe looming in the back of your mind, perhaps thinking like, oh, it might mess up again, or maybe something else will mess up. But then at the same time, it's like, okay, well, you have that going on, but then now you have to go battle against these behemoths, if you want to even call them that. And then just sort of try to manage all of that and keep yourself in the game. So how were you able to handle that?
Yeah, so a bit opposite of what you would think, right? So with the rear end of the car, my mindset was like, let it break. Like I do not care.
Okay.
When they put me on the track, I don't even think about it. And I literally forgot about it. Like I did not think about that rear subframe issue from the time that I battled Jonathan Nairn. Like just at that time, it was like that never even happened. So that wasn't on my shoulders. And then really like what I felt like I had on my side for momentum was like, again, being in the Corvette, I had to really read all of the 30 seconds of the run as much as I could. So when I got into the 240, I was just very, very aware. Like I'm in the car and I can look ahead of them. I can see them. I can see their line about to go off track. So for me, it was like just staying in the present moment and then just, I guess, allowing a mistake to hopefully happen on their end was the game that I was playing versus adding any pressure of that might break or holy shit, I can't beat Jonathan Nairn. He qualified first. Like I just kind of tried to see it and then make that happen. And on that day, it worked out for me.
Yeah, took you all the way to the top.
Yeah, and then like when you get to that point, you're just like, wait, is there more battles? Like you almost get lost in it. You're just like, you kind of lose track of like where you're at. Because if I started, and I did this, I started thinking about like, okay, if I don't win this one, then I think I'm on the box, but I'd get third. And then I was like, don't think about any of that. Like just try to win every one of them. And then whenever they tell you you're done drifting, you're done drifting. And it kind of felt like that for me.
One battle at a time. One battle at a time.
Get it done. Damn, let's keep going. No, Nate, it's over. I want to keep going. No, it's over. Shit. All right.
Yeah. So the car seemed dialed in.
Dude, the car was sharp.
Yeah.
That car was sharp. Like,
right.
So quick little skinny version here is like, so I had a wiring issue that ended up blowing my motor. So literally the chassis harness in my car was from somewhere around 2017. So it went 18, 19, 20, 21. And I had never redid any of the wiring in the car. So obviously it's like brittle and it's starting to cause issues. And we realized like the wiring has just been through it. And, whether it's not grounding properly, it's not delivering fuel properly, like there's too much going on to try to sift through it and figure it out. So again, like in that last 48 hours, we rewired everything and like the motor felt so sharp. The car would turn on every time. The screen wouldn't give me any issue. Like there was just no electrical issues, no motor hiccups. So yeah, I like had a ton of confidence, which just keeps me thinking about the drifting event, right? Like it keeps me thinking about my line and how to better it. And in competition, what was the hardest thing to try to really lock in was the like start to initiation with like, let's say dirt, right? Like with those fast cars on the tire they're on, my timing there was the hardest part out of the whole run.
Yeah, because that sets your pace for the rest of the run. Yeah. And they have like much more mechanical grip, whether it be the ride height of their car. Like I still want mine to be low enough and look cool. And you know what I mean? Yeah. No, that's one thing that like I don't like when I go to drift events. I see all these cars I mean, I understand why they do it, right? Everything's jacked up, and I'm just like, I like the JDM style, right? The slammed.
I'm trying to keep both.
It's hard. Dustin Miles was good at that. At least at Admiral Coast, it was pretty low, and he was able to hang for the most part. But
Randy Noah,
Randy Noah is another one, right? But okay, so now any major changes you have to make to the car, or you think you're just gonna do some basic maintenance and let it ride?
Yeah, we're gonna like change the oil, change the spark plugs. We're gonna actually put a new subframe in it, so we have one that's gonna be obviously reinforced, so that way we don't have this issue. And of course, you got to remember too, at the track, Honadale's team, so Ernie, Honadale's guy, and Connor's guy, Andrew, helped weld my subframe back.
Oh,
and they're doing the whole like, you know, one eye, it looks close to this, pretty, like, you know what I mean? Like, so
right.
it's hard to say if that pickup point is even in the exact spot it should be. So
Right.
to kind of eliminate that chance, we're just going to throw a new subframe in it and make sure she's like well aligned.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was so funny too because Ernie on Honda's team was like, you know, I don't know if we can, whatever. He was like, "Fuck you, dude!" Like, you know, it was like, "I'll fix your shit." And then the same
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
Andrew came at the end of the van, was like, "Fuck you, man!" Like, they
Yeah.
helped me, you know, get by, and then we got by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen that in the past with Rome lending a transmission to Alec and then taking the #1 qualifying spot on that transmission.
Yeah,
We've seen that
yeah.
before in the past, so it's always good to be on the winning edge of that scenario, right?
It don't always happen, but in the same regard, like I lend gears to Honadel and we work together and like, you know, I love that camaraderie, right? That's how when in 2012 drifting was. Everyone would help everyone. Obviously, you get like bummed when you lose and then you drink beer and it's all good. So I enjoy that and I want to keep that alive in 144's pits, you know?
Yeah, and we saw that actually with a random fan with Adamas, right? The explosion in the pits,
Insane.
and then a random guy coming out and just say, "Hey, take the parts off my car to try to get you going."
Insane. Like
Yeah, that was insane to see that happen. So it's
drifting like that.
in drifting. That's why I fell in love with drifting the most.
Yeah.
When I went to my first event and I saw that people lending tires to somebody else so they can compete against them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something I was ever used to seeing because most of my time around cars was drag racing and it's cutthroat. Like they're hoping something breaks or you run out of tires, right?
Yeah.
So just to see that, just I don't know, it's just a whole different vibe that I've ever experienced, and it seems to be universal. Now, of course, you have your guys that are cutthroat. You have your guys that are really strict competitors and are like that. But for the vast majority of my experience, hasn't been that way.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think it speaks to, you know, what would you call it? Like, it speaks to the benefit of the sport beyond just that event that you're at, right? Like,
Yes.
I appreciate Ernie and Andrew helping me. And if there's somebody local in Florida that hits me up that may need something, I would recommend them, right? So they can help you on that day, but it may go even further than that down the road. And I think that that's kind of the glue of drifting is like we're all trying to big each other up through our small businesses that we need to do to then go racing. And I think like when you can remember like today's the day of competition, but that camaraderie goes well beyond just that event. I'm just proud to see that alive still, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So now that you won the event, evidently you already have plans for the car. Do you have plans for the shop? I mean, because it seems like you're branching out and working with some of your competitors actually. So how's that relationship going? And are you looking to do more and branch out into other industries, or are you sticking around the drifting primarily?
Yeah, I mean, I think like, you know, to speak on that, it's like saying I really, really have a goal for 144 to become much more of a brand than it is Nate Hamilton. I think that I can basically just expedite the information that I've had to learn for other drivers like Will Couch or Jonathan Nairn or guys that are trying to turn their motorsports career into a brand to leverage to sponsors to then make it. And then I just happen to be the dude that prints the shirts that can kind of expedite that. So like my goal is to print for as many drivers as possible. And, you know, what's kind of cool on the back end of that is the more we print together, the better the better pricing I get on my blanks, because the more my volume goes up, the better margins we make, which then I offer to the guys. So in a way, all of us working together just allows, you know, your 48 or 72 pack of shirts to be more affordable. And then that way we just are, you know, a driver printing for a driver and a company that cares about motorsports printing for motorsports. And so there's just a lot of parallels there that are working. And you're going to see me over the next few years really push for 144 to potentially, let's say, have a team, for 144 to be a sticker on cars, and it's like it's a brand that creates, that's for motorsports. And my hope is to be able to be scalable in the future with my investments and just take over the drifting industry and be the plug that can allow everyone to rock solid t-shirts and sell them and make a profit that helps fund their tire budget, right?
Right. Pay it forward.
But yeah, it is weird sometimes, because like you get so to go to the on track moments, it's like, yo, what up? Sick, the shirts look great, awesome. And then when you beat him in comp, it's like, fuck you, dude, you know. So there's a yin and a yang to it. But again, like it speaks further than just that event, right? Like obviously, you know, when you get knocked out of comp, it's just not the funnest thing. But at the same time, you cool off, and then I'm still here for you, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Good deal.
And then the other thing I wanted to ask you is that you're publishing or basically expressing some of this, some of your journey on your YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
ahead.
I mean, yeah, like you know, YouTube for me comes and goes. It's something that I will be honest and say, like, I'm definitely not consistent with. It's a full-time job, and I don't have anybody in the position right now that's operating it. I enjoy being in front of a camera and telling a story, but at the same time, you know, it's a tough hire, right? Like creating is tough, finding the right person is tough. YouTube monetization is tough when you're small and you have however many subs we have, like 1,000 or something, right? So it's just one of those things that I would love for the brand to do more in the future, but right now it's pretty stale. And yeah, but I do enjoy telling a story on YouTube.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time, and doing it yourself sucks, right? No, it does, because you're like, okay, I'm gonna change my tires. I don't want to record that. I'm just gonna freaking change my tires. Oh, I'm gonna do. You know, I'm not gonna record me freaking welding my exhaust, because it's gonna slow down the process. You just want to get it done. Yeah. So it does. You got to bring somebody in, and then that's here. Now you're not another expense, right? Yeah. And now maybe they don't interpret things, or they don't have the same vision, right, that you have to put up. So it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing, but it's something that can benefit you fairly well if you can get it right.
Like I need to lean into it more for sure, but I just, you know, the print shop's busy. We're getting jobs. We're going racing. You know, it's something that I want to do it, and I want to do it right. And I almost fear, I guess you'd say, like, I almost fear doing it like randomly. I'd much rather just like maybe pause it and build a solid foundation, and then relaunch it, and then just make sure when I relaunch it's consistent. So I'm on the fence there, you know, like I don't know how to get that one going yet.
I get you, man. What? Oh, okay. All right. So took home first place, got some money, right? Get to throw that back in the program. Feels good finally to get on that podium. And you're gonna make some changes to the car, and I assume you're gonna keep the game plan the same, going to round 5.
Yep. The boys are talking about just car setup, gearing for the bank, kind of how we can walk into the first practice session as prepared as possible. But yeah, same thing. I think like this win has allowed me to see winning a little bit clearer. So hopefully I can just do the same thing again here in 2 weeks. And I think the bank will benefit me. Like my 240, like I love it, but at the same time, underneath the panels, it's completely like a crushed beer can. So riding a wall for me feels super fun. I've got 2 bumpers in the trailer, so I'm ready for those moments. And I just hope I could be like very aggressive on this last race.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're looking forward to seeing it. Kind of starting to wrap this up. Is there anything that you want to touch on, or think you maybe missed, or anything?
Dude, we've been running it. I feel good about it. You guys are killing it. Thanks for having me on. Like, I just wanted to connect and talk more about the industry. And so I appreciate you guys letting me do that, you know?
No, we appreciate you having on. And that's one of the things that we've always decided that this was going to be about, is highlighting drivers, whether it be pro drivers or just drivers that are grassroots. We've had grassroots drivers that nobody's probably ever heard of, and we've had guys like you that have made a name for yourself in the pro circuit. And we are just embracing it every day we can,
Yeah.
and we just enjoy it. Like we're doing it because it's a passion we love to do.
Yeah.
This is something that we're gonna do. Nobody's gonna stop us doing it, whether nobody watches this or everybody watches this. It's gonna be the same for us. You know, we're not doing it for any other reason. Would it be great to have little benefits of people watching? Yes, of course it would. Of course it would. Be able to monetize and afford that our live stream rig that we're always talking about. We talked about in some of the past to be able to fund that, but that's not a reality right now. But it's not going to stop us. We enjoy doing it.
I like where you're going with it, and I kind of get that same mindset with YouTube or whatever program you want to start up. It takes time, and then just imagine everything you're cataloging right now. When you do hit the mainstream light, they can go back and watch it. So like, you're just cataloging. You're cataloging your brand, you're cataloging yourselves, and it'll pop off.
Yeah. Well, Nate, I appreciate you taking the time out, and we've talked about having you on for a while. And I'm just ecstatic that it worked out in such a way that we got you on and you ended up winning. So, that's pretty cool. Like I was like, literally after we announced you the winner, Ben looks at me just like, you realize what just happened, right? We got him to get on the show, and then he won. It's just like he couldn't have asked for a more perfect lineup. So again, shout out to your family.
Yeah.
You're a new dad, and I'm sure you're loving that life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess let's end. What is your YouTube channel, and where can people find you on the Instagrams or whatnot?
Yeah. I think the social plugs, YouTube is just 144. And then I think Nate Hamilton 144, and then the print house is 144's print house. So those are like the 3 spots that we're dropping content.
Okay. All right. So those of you guys that are watching, support this man. I mean, he's doing big things, and it's been great to just watch your progression and see how just as everything has worked out. And it's great to see you on top, and we're looking forward to round 5 to see what happens.
That's right. It's just getting started, man. I'll see you guys in a few short weeks, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Coming.
All right.
Have a good night.
Wait, what?
What?
No, hang on. Just got to do the thing. Folks, thank you for watching, and we hope to see you 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now.
Wait,
Well,
hang on.
No. So wait, hold on a second.
Hang
Are
on.
we doing the thing?
The thing?
Oh, yeah, yes.
The thing.
Okay.
But we're going to make an announcement.
We could use a space to do the thing.
Right.
He has a good space to do the thing.
All right. But we got to... Hey, Nate, can you stick around for a moment after this? Okay, we're going to sign off. We're going to figure some things out.
About the thing.
And then we will make an announcement soon enough.
Okay.
In the meantime, though, just follow us along. We'll make an announcement hopefully soon enough, and you'll probably see us soon again. In the meantime, thank you all for watching. Appreciate your time, and hope to catch you next time. Take care, and good night.